Welcome to Food Buddies, your food technology partner. I'm Jayalakshmi, working as a project leader in Food Buddies. We are going to have a webinar on 9 common mistakes in food industry plant designing. This is going to be an interactive session with my colleague here.
Hi everyone.
First of all, we should know what is plant layout. It refers to an arrangement of different facilities including human resources, material, machinery and equipment and different zones from RO plant, production area, primary packaging area, secondary packaging area, storage area, QC lab and finally waste management system, etc. It's a crucial function which has to be performed at the time of initial design of any facility during its growth, development and diversification. It's a kind of strategic design which has to be performed. It's a kind of strategic design which has to be planned perfectly because once implemented, if any change has to be done, it would be resulting in the substantial loss. Why this 9 common mistake? During our 10 years experience, we have handled more than 3000 clients and about 90% of the clients have committed the following 9 common mistakes, which resulted in energy loss, money loss of about 30 to 40%, time loss of 3 to 4 months. So this webinar is going to emphasize how to avoid the following 9 common mistakes. We are going to start our interactive session on 9 common mistakes. First, we are going to explore on the first common mistake, failing to plan for expansion. What do you think why people fail to plan for expansion?
That's very interesting. The reasons are very basic. So I would like to share the few insights about why people fail to plan for expansion. The first is like the futuristic plan. That is the goal of the organization in terms of an R&D, what products are there in the pipeline. So they should not launch the product on the go or develop the product on the go, which will have an impact on the expansion plan, that is on the space constraints. And second is like volume to be taken off in the market. What is a volume that is anticipated to sell for the next 2 years is very important parameter to consider for the expansion. The second point is like underestimating the machinery efficiency. Estimating the machinery efficiency, I remember in your previous project also, there was a difference in opinion in terms of an efficiency where we used to consider the lowest performance of the machinery efficiency, where the client want to consider the maximum of the machinery efficiency, which has created the space constraint right now for them to go for an expansion. Correct me.
Yeah, I remember that.
Thank you. So the next point is like lack of knowledge in the food processing operations, whereas not only the considering the machinery part, the input to be given for that particular machinery, what is the processing time, what is the output of the particular machinery, the men and material movement of the particular machinery, how this particular machinery's input is connected with the next machinery output, because certain particular machinery's output is connected with the multiple machinery's input. So those all parameters have to be considered very much in detail, which will give the right space calculation as well. The final point is like improper certification planning. Today you are having an ISO 22000 certification. Tomorrow you would like to go for an expansion to a different certification. So that futuristic plan have to be well thought in advance, which will save a lot of money as well as the planning will go accordingly. So what do you think, Jaya, these mistakes, what will be the consequences or impact of these mistakes?
Based on our experience, I would say there would be 80% loss in civil work, 100% loss in logistic, 100% loss in statutory, 70% loss in consultation, and 100% loss in time, that is about 6 months.
I agree to your point, Jaya, because when the factory is moving from a one location to another location, 50% of the decision makers make this mistake because they need to start with the small, test the prototype and would like to plan for an expansion. Within a year and a half, those facility is not capable enough to produce the required quantity. So 80% of the civil is lost in that area. All 100% investment towards bringing the machineries and equipments is lost. All the statutory whatever has been required for the particular factory taken is lost. The consultation required to set up a particular factory, 70% loss has been happened. On the time, the biggest commodity today which cannot be recovered, minimum 6 months it will take for them to establish either a new factory or the renovate an existing factory to go for an expansion. So that is a very big loss indeed. I agree to your point very much.
Yes. How do you think we can avoid this problem?
That's an interesting part of it. There is a very quick fix solution towards it. I would like to bring it to one highlight. It is a very thumb rule. It is well understood in the industry, like the sales volume, there will be an ups and downs in it. We cannot predict a very high sales volume for the next 2 years because most of them will be like a first generation food entrepreneurs. So the predictability in the sales will be unrealistic for sure, and the R&D goal also will be evolving as the product is revolving in the market. So this they can consider as a very good thumb rule, because in last 10 years of consultation we have applied to a lot of clients and we do have a proven results here. So what we consider here is like whatever the current production they would like to go ahead. For example, 1 ton per day is the current production that you would like to plan to go ahead. We will consider for a 4 ton per day for the build up area. The construction, the factory construction area, build up area, we will consider for a 4 ton per day, and the total area including the build up area and the outer spaces for the waste management system, the mobility of the vehicles, and for the other purposes, we will consider that 10 times of the current production. Whatever the space required for a 1 ton, for example for producing a 1 ton, 3000 square feet is required, we will go for a 30,000 square feet of the total area required, so that the futuristic expansion goes very smooth in the same facility. So this is one of the thumb rule. Other thumb rule is like hire the professionals like food buddies who will help us to resolve this and plan ahead in the future and give you the right plan as well.
Yeah, that's true. We are on the second common mistake, men and material traffic. First of all, we should know what is men and material traffic. It's a crucial factor which creates hindrance on the overall efficiency of the plant due to improper positioning of employees and machineries. Here, with my colleague, we'll discuss about why people are not considering men and material traffic.
Yeah, this is one of the common mistake that happens in the food industry. So why the people generally don't consider this men and material traffic? The reasons are space planning around the unit operations. So as we discussed in the earlier mistake number one, so whatever the food processing operations like input, output, the space required around the mobility of the particular equipment has to be thought well in advance to estimate the space required. And the second thing is like not grouping the similar operations. I would like to share the insights, practical insight here. When we recently went for a gap audit of a 22,000 square feet of a unit, where there are more than 300 SKUs is produced in this particular company, lot of operations is a very similar operations, and they do have a smaller versions of the machineries to handle in each and every department that can be grouped together to avoid the men and material traffic inside the organization. The next is like improper planning of a time management during a production. They have to plan the time management when the production is going to start and what is the pre-processing requirement for the those production to initiate it, when the production will end, how much time it will take for the processing and the cleaning time taken. While during the cleaning of the process, there will be certain times they'll be wrapping up the finished goods, or certain times during the cleaning of a particular batch they'll be initiating the raw material pre-processing activity. So that has to be planned well, the time management, so that will help them to avoid the men and material traffic inside the organization.
Okay, do you have any idea to plan for this time management?
The production schedule has to be thought well in advance when we are doing a plant layout designing. So
Okay.
what we usually use it in a reverse mechanism, no, in order to get the finished quantity of an 1 ton per day when the production has to start, the 1 ton per day have to be packaged and stored it into a secondary it has to be packed in a secondary packaging and stored into a finished good room by end of a 6 o'clock. So in order to finish this activity by end of a 6 o'clock when the production has to start, and what is the sequence of the production will go ahead and how many productions will go parallelly, what is the cleaning time required and how many men are required to produce a particular production, we need to do a reverse mechanism on that while during the plant layout, which will give a tangible clarity on the time management. So that will give the number of equipments, number of people, how the material movement, we can do a workflow. So the layout types also plays a critical role. Like there are different types of a layout like a straight line, U lines and a V type, and cross sectional. So the selection of the layout depends on the processing industry plays a critical role in order to avoid the zigzag of movements of the material and men inside the production factory. Ultimately the material flow planning inside the organizations. So how the material flow is going to happen, we need to mark the pathways also. This is the way the material is going to flow it, and this is how the mint has to operate it. So the pathway has to be marked so that the material flow will be very much good in the production facility. So what do you think about the impact or consequences of this? Do you have any points to add on that?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So generally there would be 10 percentage loss in product itself. I mean kind of wastage generated from the industry.
So usually it should be less than 2 percentage and maximum of a 3 percentage is permitted. The 10 percentage is a very heavy loss.
Yeah, this is because of improper men and material movement.
Yeah, certain times the spillover happens, cross
Yeah.
contaminations. That's good.
Yeah, that's one of the consequence, which is cross contamination. Yeah. I also have one example. In meat processing industry, generally they would be processing the meat, right? So if men and material movement is not planned properly, and they are keeping the processed meat beside the raw meat, then that is a prone to contaminate. So
Okay.
this also we can
Yeah,
consider as
yeah,
an example.
that is very high when it is coming to the meat industry. The next is our flavor scalping, which is your interesting topic. Go ahead.
So generally the flavor scalping is nothing but the migration of flavor from one product to the another. So generally it would be happening in the industry which has so many SKUs. And also there would be the increase in production cost of about 10 percentage, because this spillover is happening, cross contamination is happening, and totally there would be a congestion, so that would be resulting in the production cost.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I agree to your point here. When the wastage is 10%, obviously the production cost will
Yes,
increase by 10%.
it's clear that there would be also time loss, because we are not planning the movement properly, and they would be moving in the zigzag manner, and they would have not clear about the process flow, so that would be obviously leading to the time loss of 20 percentage. Let's look at a case study when we are gone for gap auditing to ice cream plant.
So you went for a gap audit to ice cream plant?
Yeah.
So are you going to talk about the men and material traffic over there?
Yes.
You solved the problem?
Yeah, of course.
That's amazing. So what does this C represent for?
This is a continuous freezer.
What is this W?
There is a window to enter into the finished goods store area.
Okay, the C is the continuous freezer and W is the window to enter into a finished goods store area. So what is your observation here?
Here we actually have this 4 continuous freezer, and for each continuous freezer there is a person working around that. So like product would be coming from the continuous freezer, they have to collect the product from the continuous freezer, and they have to move on till window to enter into the finished goods store area. So
Okay.
it's approximately taking around 7 minutes. So this is a like gap in men and material traffic.
So you say that each person in front of the continuous freezer have to collect the material and they need to bring to a particular window.
Yes.
So how much people will be working in the continuous freezer?
Around 8 people.
Around 8 people will be working
Of
in every
course.
continuous
Yes.
freezer. So one people will be collecting the
Yeah.
finished good and they'll be bringing to a
Yes.
storage area. So you're telling that 7 minutes you have mentioned, no?
Yes.
So have you considered this shortest pathway as a 7 minute, or this is the longest pathway I observe it? So this is a 7 minute. Which is a 7 minute?
That is a shortest pathway.
So this is the shortest pathway is taking itself is 7 minutes.
Yes.
So then what is the time taken for the longest pathway?
That would be taking around 9 minutes.
So it is taking around 9 minutes.
Yes.
So to my understanding, so when the ice cream is taking nearly 7 minutes or a 9 minutes, when the product is immediately coming out of a freezer and it's kept out for a 7 to 9 minutes.
Additional to that, there would be a formation of crystals in the product. That would be resulting in the quality loss as well.
The ice cream starts melting and the crystal formation again starts when the product is again stored in the cold storages.
Yes.
Which will impact hugely on the sensory of the product, correct?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so this is a problem that you got it to solve it.
Yes.
I see a different diagram here. What it is?
So what we have done is turn the continuous freezer in the second line, so it would be facing each other. So we will be having some common conveyor between four continuous freezer. So we
Okay.
can just pass the product to the conveyor, and we can get easily get into the window entry into the finished goods store area.
So you mean that this four continuous freezer has been connected to a single conveyor
Yes.
belt. So this output, this output, this output, this
Yeah.
output has been connected to a single conveyor,
Yes.
which gets into the window directly to a cold storage.
Yeah.
This is a solution you offered.
Yeah.
So it's amazing. So here there will be 7 to 8 people around. So for the one people to mobilize from this location to this location, it's a huge conjunction for them to move a trolley or whatever the materials.
Yeah.
And every 7 minutes they have to keep moving.
Yes.
So one trolley have to come out, other trolley have to go out, and the empty bin has to go, and the filled bin has to come. So like I feel like there will be a huge movement over there, but the simple solutions of implementing this conveyor and moving the position of this has got what is an impact of this implementation? Can you tell me in terms of a numbers?
Yeah, because here we add like utilize 7 or 9 minutes for the movement of the material itself. Whereas if
Okay.
we consider 1, it would hardly take 1 minute to reach into the window.
Okay, that's good. So you are telling that the min mobility required for four people for the four continuous freezer, right now it is nil.
Yes,
There is no min.
between. So we would
Okay.
be passing the product through that.
So time taken was minimum 7 minutes. Right now it is moving less than a minute.
Yeah.
That's good. So crystal formation was there. Now there is no crystal
No,
formation. So there is no conjunctions in the min and material movement. So
not at
there is a
all.
free flow of a work movement over there.
Yeah.
Okay. So the dependency was yes, it was dependent on the men and
Yeah.
men movement, like the speed of the men movement, and there is no dependency right now. So the money you have saved nearly is around 4 people into 350 was the wages to those people.
Yeah.
Per day into 300 working days was around coming 4,20,000.
20,000.
So that conveyor belt was around 1,85,000.
Yeah.
So that is saving nearly around 2 lakh. I consider that there is an
Yeah.
EB cost or a repair cost or a maintenance cost or some other things goes. So minimum 2 lakh you could able to save per year
Yeah.
for this by just implementing a small conveyor
Yeah.
system. So that sounds pretty well.
We'll move on to third common mistake, improper flooring. Do you know why flooring is improper in food industry?
Yeah, there are a lot of reasons. I would like to take to the first reason, lack of investment in planning. By default, they are in this less than a 6 months, maximum within a year, they have to invest on the flooring requirement. Considering well in advance what kind of a flooring they need to go ahead will save a huge lot of money. And the second is like lack of awareness. Based on the different standards and the different zone, the flooring requirement will vary from requirements. So planning that in an advance also will help them a lot. And the third is like executing based on the civil or an architect expertise. They need to have a food technology expertise here to identify the different zones requirement and the different standard requirements, and the cost effective solution to go ahead for a flooring is very important, because once the civil part is done, then reback considering like what kind of a flooring to go for a which zone will cost a huge loss of money. Would you like to share the consequences or impact on this?
Yeah, we do have consequences such as relocation of machinery for flow changes. Like if you are planning to change the floor, first of all we should relocate the machine. Then we have to do this flooring. Again we have to bring back the machine to the unit. This would be creating such a loss in civil investment and time investment of about 2 months, and also energy loss. There also be a break in the production for about 2 months, because like during this work we won't be doing any production work.
I agree.
And finally, the safety of foods would also be affected.
Yeah, really true. Because I have seen a lot of industries where there is a where there is no smooth surface. They used to spread the production sheets and work around that, and the cross contaminations in that area is also very higher. The safety of the food is really threatens in those kind of a industry where there is no smooth surface of the production area.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so how we can solve this problem?
First of all, we should know what kind of floorings are approved. Some of them are vinyl tiles, quarry tiles, seal concrete, pour seamless, is nothing but the epoxy, and commercial sheet vinyl. So for different section, we have to use such kind of flooring. For vinyl tiles, it can be used only in the dry storage area. Whereas quarry tiles, it can be used in all kind of processing area, and it's very slip resistant. Whereas the seal concrete, it can also be used in all production area except dishwashing.
I think sealed concrete is FDA approved even.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, we can use it in the FDA norms industry
Yeah.
as well.
And coming to the post seamless, that is nothing but the epoxy.
Yes.
So it's actually the smooth and continuous flooring, so which is highly recommended in all kind of food processing industry. And finally, the commercial sheet vinyl, it is also recommended highly in all the food production area. And but the only thing, it should not be installed in the cold room.
Yeah, yeah. Usually sealed concrete is preferred in the cold rooms. You are
Yes.
correct. Yeah. So, what is the solutions that you offer?
Uh, so we can solve this by basic thing. This should be impervious, smooth and easy to clean. It should be able to withstand the effect of lactic acid in case of dairy industry. It should be able to resist the effect of the cleaning solution, steam or hot water. It should be strong enough to withstand the effect of falling objects, cans, boxes, and it should have high resistance to abrasion such as wear and tear. It should have desired slope towards the drains. In processing section, the slope should be 1:8, whereas in the bottling section, it should be around 1:40.
Yeah, I think these are all the basic standards they need to consider it for the flooring, and from the industry to industry, the flooring requirement will vary
Yeah.
a lot.
The fourth common mistake, no proper division between wet and dry zones. Why wet and dry zones are not divided in food industry? Can you tell about that?
Yeah, this is a common insight that everybody knows it, like lack of awareness, like what is a wet zone and what is a dry zone. And the second thing is like lack of investment and planning considered for the partitions to take care of it. And third thing is very interesting insight, because when we go for a lot of gap audit, the one thing we could commonly identify is like laziness for the mobility of the materials. Because of this one factor, they want to keep everything in a shortest distance or availability to the nearest places. So that is causing they are not separating the dry and wet zones. Ultimately, habit is equal to the results. So the laziness is a habit of the, I can say like that is a culture of the organization. Which culture of the organization having this laziness, those areas I could able to commonly identify that the dry zones or wet zones are not properly divided. In spite of there is a division, there is no follow up of the regulations by the employees that the wet zone and dry zone have to be properly well maintained. Laziness is one of the biggest reason I can say. Do you think will that be any consequences or impact because of this?
Yeah, we do have consequences. If your failure to adequately plan and construct a premises that meets hygienic requirements may result in persistent microbial environmental condition or contamination that is difficult to remove or manage. This is one of the main consequence if you are failing to adequately plan the division between wet and dry zones. And this would obviously resulting in the efficiency loss of about 5%.
Okay, I would like to share the interesting insight here. So, when I was going for a visit to a chapati unit, they have got a dry zone of a wheat flour storages, and they do have an wet zone of mixing the doughs and everything. Both the products are kept in a single room where the dry flour is there and the mixing of the dough is also there. Initially, for them, the chapati has given a shelf life of a 7 days. Later, after 5 to 6 months of the production starting, they could able to get the desired shelf life of only 2 days. Then when we did a root cause analysis of the problem, that was one of the problem, they didn't separate the dry and wet zones. How we can
Really?
solve this? Yeah, really. How we can solve this?
We can overcome this problem by basic thing. There should be some walls and barriers to separate wet and dry zones, and color coded schemes should be followed to identify distinction between the wet and dry zones by the workers working over there, and to establish a master sanitation schedule to assure timely and effective sanitation for basic good manufacturing practices and transitional areas. And risk assessment must be included when developing flow charts and reviewing product and process flow. And a solid barrier should make sense. If it's not working out, then employee training or practices are the key.
I really come to the fifth point. I agree very much on that. Habit is equal to a result. Employee training and practicing the employee to follow the particular process sequentially is very, very important to overcome the dry and wet zone. Even putting a barriers or a color code schemes or a sanitation schedule, ultimately the employee have to develop a habit and they have to develop a culture of maintaining the dry and wet zone, organizing the dry and wet zone in the proper manner.
We shall move on to fifth common mistake, improper waste management system, which is an interesting topic for you. Why do you think waste management is ignored by the people? Can you explain?
Yeah, there are a lot of reasons in common I have identified. The number one is like not having a clarity on the type and the quantity of the waste produced so that they can plan in advance. The second is like cost effective solution to implement it. Always there is a perception like the waste management is a highly non affordable solutions, and third is like ignore considering the investment required. There is a lack of awareness like what sort of an investment will be there for the waste management protocol to follow. And fourth is like a prioritization from the leader. The leader of the organization has to prioritize the waste management is very critical for the industry. And fifth is like not aware of the impact to the ecosystem. So by discarding this waste directly to our ecosystem, what kind of an impact that we will have it? Kindly explain the impact or consequences of it. Jaya, what will be the impact or consequences of this?
I'll explain that.
Yeah.
It creates temporary setbacks from neighboring people,
Oh,
holding production till it has been rectified,
yes.
and penalty from the government.
Agreed.
Improper planning leads to shutdown of factory itself,
Amazing.
stretches the investment of area required.
Considered. So I would like to bring the examples here, couple of examples here. When I was visiting a factory of a chapati industry, so they have to discard the samples which was kept inside the front of the organization, which is in turn bringing out the cross contamination to the fresh produce. As I stated, the shelf life has gone drastically from 7 days to 2 days. That is one of the impact I could tangibly say it. And one of a very old story of 9 years before, where we have did a consultations to a bakery industry where they have set up a unit in the residential area. Due to the foul smell from the eggs and from the good smell from the bakery products, they had a huge setback from the neighbors, and where they were likely to move the unit, they have to shut the operations for 3 to 4 months and move the unit from this location to a next location. That was a huge setback even. So how we can resolve this?
First, we should know what type of waste has been generated in food processing industry. I'll explain that. First, liquid waste, so that reusable and non-reusable would be coming from the food processing industry, and solid waste, both biodegradable and non-biodegradable. Lab waste such as hazardous and non-hazardous. Production waste from recall product, expired product and defected product. And finally, packaging waste such as primary and secondary packaging.
Okay, there is an interesting contaminations in that. Underutilized machineries or equipments which is kept inside the factory will also generate the waste products, because it happens lot of in the cross contaminations. That is also one kind of a increasing the waste also, I can call it in another way. So how we can overcome the solution? What is the solution for this?
Yeah, here is a solution. How effectively we can manage waste produced in food industry. Step number 1. We have to first identify type of waste produced in food industry, whether it's a liquid waste, solid waste or packaging waste, etc. And step 2, we have to estimate the volume of waste. with the current production capacity and for the future production capacity.
Okay.
And step 3, identify the right solution, whether we are going with the STP or ETP. Step 4, we have to check with standards like air pollution license, FSSI license, certification like FDA, EU regulation, etc. And it should comply with government norms.
Yeah, it is very important.
And step 5,
Implement the cost effective
yeah.
solutions. Okay.
Step 6, we have to check periodically on the effectiveness, whether it's working or not, whether we are managing the waste, how much volume of waste has been generated and such volume has been managed or not. So this is very important thing.
Yeah, I agree to these 6 points, which is very simplified solution to plan for the effective waste management.
We are in the sixth common mistake, lack of clarity with respect to the stages of layout. Why people are not considering the stages of layout? Can you tell?
When you mean it like the stages of layout, the first is like awareness about the different stages to the plant layout designing expertise team, the lack of awareness, and the second thing is like expecting the layout to be very perfect on the first go. So and up to the top of it, like the technical spec of the missionaries, their capability enough to manipulate the different detailing of the missionary spec, and to evaluate what is required, what is not required, what has to be considered for the plant layout designing is very important, crucial playing. And the lack of food technical expertise, as we discussed a lot on the unit operations like input output processing time and the space requirement, food technical expertise is very important to be considered. Inability to evaluate the machineries, because right now the Google is very flatly available and taking a code from a multiple vendor, that's perfectly all right. How do you evaluate that this is the right machinery supplier for us is very very critical. The capability enough to evaluate the right machinery is very important, not finalizing the right machinery vendor. Do you think the consequences of this will be on a higher end or on a lighter note? What will be the consequences of this?
Of course, it would be in higher end only.
Okay.
Reconstruction would be minimum of 10 percentage loss.
Okay.
And if you are not properly planning for electrical and plumbing, it would be delay in 2 months for unload run itself.
Yes, agreed. I think the energy consumption going higher will have an impact on the cost of production to shoot up.
Yes.
Okay. Do you think the impact or consequences will for this will be on a higher end?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Civil construction would be about 10 percentage loss, because if you are not properly planning as per the stages, there would be a reconstruction option. So there would be about 10 percentage loss by going for reconstruction option. And if you are not properly planning this electricity plumbing work, then there would be delay in 2 months for unload run itself. And energy consumption would go higher, which shoot up the production cost. And finally, the time delay of about 4 to 6 months.
Okay. So how are we going to resolve it?
We do have three stages in food plant layout design, which is generally followed by food buddies. Stage 1 is rough layout, stage 2 which is master layout, stage 3 final layout. We'll start with the first layout, the rough layout. Here the inputs collected are the basic data collection like product information such as type of product to be produced, production volume, and machinery for the particular product, and identifying the right machinery and getting the codes from different machinery vendor and evaluating the machinery, and with the help of this machinery input calculating the reverse mechanism, which would be helpful in knowing the loss percentage so that we can plan for the input and the output.
So will that be a yield percentage losses? Will you be considering in a different stages of production?
Yes.
Okay. So what is the output of the rough layout?
It would be helpful in initiating the civil construction in advance and to estimate the area required for the production.
Oh, that sounds good. So we can able to initiate the construction well in advance.
Yeah, sure.
So this is a rough layout that we need to go with the thumb rule of multiply by 4 and multiply by 10 and take it forward.
Yeah.
Okay. So let us go to the medium.
Yes.
So the input required, sir?
Here we should consider the process transformation from one process to next process. We should know how much time is required for that, and the material handling, how it's going to be handled, whether by conveyor or trolley or manual handling, and electric, plumbing, and civil. Things like electrical inputs from the machinery vendor, such as power requirement and dimensions to calculate the space requirement and technical specs. Other than that, if
I
machinery
think
vendor,
inlet and outlet of the water line
yeah,
is there.
that would be helpful for water layout, which is called as plumbing.
Okay. So allied equipments has to also to be considered well.
Yes, I'll give an example for this. Have developed this chocolate coated nuts, and we have done a turnkey project for that. For that, I was identifying the machine. With that, the allied machines such as the compressor, the spraying, such as chocolate sprayer, it would be coming along with that, which would make the process very easy to complete and decrease the manual effort.
Okay, so you're telling like men and material movement, all the parameters, like each and every detailing piece of the layout has to be well thought in advance, and we need to dive in detailing of the quotations of the machinery vendors and to collect a lot of information required to put it into one proper planning to create a layout.
Yeah, first we should, like, whenever we are getting the code from the machinery vendor, we should look on the equipment, allied equipment coming along with the vendor. So
Okay.
we don't want to go find for the equipment. So
Okay.
it's better to get the code along with the equipment.
Okay, I love the next point like vendor board meeting. I feel it is very important to invite all the vendors like a civil, electrical, plumbing, machinery suppliers, equipment suppliers, everybody on a single go, and as well as the legal team to coordinate on the different requirement. And the waste management also we discussed in advance, and what type of a waste we are going has to be well considered here. Certification as well. AHU unit, could you please explain it?
H is nothing but like it should be maintained at the same temperature, so that we are using this hair handling unit. I'll give you an example. We handle one turnkey project where savory coated cashews and chocolate coated cashews are done. In the chocolate coated cashews, the lower temperature has to be maintained, whereas in savory coated cashews there is a probability of high generation of the heat. So in that case, we should have the air handling unit to maintain the same temperature, so it would not be affecting the cold room.
Okay.
So it will not affect the product itself.
What is the output of the medium layout?
First, final flow sheet, which would confirm the process flow which we are going to follow, and marking with craftsman for machinery erection and energy requirement, the power requirement, that we would be collecting the power requirement of every machine, and which would be helpful for the generator room, I mean the power generator room, and smooth workflow coordination from all the vendors, and finally the manpower requirement. With the inputs from the medium layout, we can calculate how much men is required for the process to be taken.
Okay, this will compile all the activities together and put it into a single flow sheet.
Yes.
That's good. How about the final one? Then what will be there in the final?
That's the important one, erection and commissioning, and that's the final one.
Okay, that is happening after erectioning and commissioning.
Yeah, and I would say like some of the people own document after the erection and commissioning. So it's very important to document the whatever we are doing in the erection and commissioning, and later if we are doing any reconstruction or renovation, it should also be documented.
Okay, that's well stated. I agree to this point very much. I would like to bring my case study here. When we recently visited for this bakery unit of a 22,000 square feet, it took nearly 45 days for us to document the existing plant layout for the further references, because we need to restructure the entire plant layout to improve the efficiency of it. So nearly it took 45 days. Very interesting, the different stages of layout.
We are in the seventh common mistake, failing to plan for certification. Do you know why people fail to plan for certification?
Yes, there are a lot of reasons. I would like to share the interesting insights. Failing to plan for the sales expansion. So, what could be the probability of the sales expansion to a different countries, and what is the need of the targeted consumer? The certification helps them to build the trust. The second thing is like not aware of the certification and its importance. What kind of a certification applies for a what kind of a requirement? Not planning for export opportunities. And fourth is like not aware the organization has to follow the system. It is very very critical that the organization has to follow the system, because this is one of the biggest dumb mistake. There is no system in the organization. The people have the liberty to work, and there won't be any monitoring and controlling to take an informed decision on it, and ultimately lack of prioritization. Do you think there will be a huge impact or a consequences based on this?
Yeah, we do have huge impact on the consequences, such as missionary investment would be resulting in 80% loss. If you want to go for another certification, the missionary spent on the first certification would be the dead investment. And next comes the construction. It would be resulting in 40 to 50% loss. And finally, the structural movement, that would be around 30 to 40% loss.
How we can solve this?
By choosing the right certificate, it based on the geographic location, whether you are going to sell it in the domestic market or going to sell in the international market, it depends on that. And the target consumer, whether you are going to target only this organic consuming people, because for organic food, that has a separate certification, we should follow that. So it depends on the target consumer and the category of product, whether it's coming under the meat category or dairy category or beverage category. We should be aware of that category of the product. And finally, the vendor requirement, some vendor would be asking for the particular certification in the product, so we should fulfill the vendor's requirement as well. So it's a good way to choose the right certificate.
Well said, Jaya. So I would like to add an insight of the target consumer. Certain people prefer halal food, certain people will not prefer the halal. So depends on your target consumer, category of a product, vendor requirement, geographic location, we need to choose the right certificate. Superb.
We are in the eighth common mistake, facilitation skill, that is vendor coordination. Why facilitation skill is missing? Can you elaborate?
Yeah, it's one of the important skill. Assigning an incompetent team player, evaluating the right competent team player in terms of a facilitation skill, because they need to coordinate with a different vendor, set the expectation clarity, and have to get work executed through those vendors. Ability to solve the challenges that appear. So there will be a definitely challenges that appears during the project execution. The capability of the competent team player to solve the challenges is very important. Lack of knowledge on the key domains. So it is not only a particular domain called as a food technology expertise, or it is there is a multiple domains like a civil, electrical, plumbing, missionaries, and the hygienic standards of the industry, statutory obligations. So there are multiple domains. The knowledge on the different domains and coordinations on this plays an important role in the facilitation skill. Finally, not aware what competent team player is required from the decision makers. They have to be clear on the competency of the team player required for this, so that the facilitation skill will not be missed out. Do you think will that be a huge impact or a consequences based on the skill?
Yes.
Okay.
It would be resulting in the time loss of about minimum 3 months, and missionary rework has to be done, that would really take 2 months. And if we are choosing any incompatible machine, the cost of production would be shooting up higher and the complete replacement has to be done. And budget shoot up like anything, and cost of each mistake, it would be minimum about 25 percentage.
Out of all the skills, the one important skill is facilitation skill. That is a common mistake done by lot of plant layout designing people. there will be a cause for each and every mistake done by this particular right team player. Only lacking in the facilitation skill, it will increase the budget by 25 percentage. Yes. So
Yeah.
how we can avoid this?
Well, we do have a solution for this. Like, first of all, we should have a board meeting and we should call upon the following people for the board meeting, such as machinery and equipment vendor, statutory and legal expertise, R&D department, process engineer, industry essentials, like those who do this air curtain, pallet, light adjustment, everything, like it comes under,
Essentials of the
yeah.
industry.
So
Okay.
those people should be invited for the board meeting, and certification bodies, production and quality manager, electrical engineer and team, and finally architect and civil engineer.
To conclude here is like, the facilitation can be done only by an effective project management. So the effective project manager have to be on the board in order to ability to coordinate with all these different type of vendors and to get the work done. So
Yes.
while evaluating the right project manager, the important skill that you need to evaluate is the facilitation skill.
Yeah.
How good they are in the facilitation skill to get the work done.
Yeah,
It's
that's
very
correct.
interesting. One skill plays a very crucial role.
Yeah. We are in the last common mistake, missequencing the execution plan.
Amazing. We have come down to the last mistake.
Yeah, finally.
Yes.
Why do you think sequencing is not done properly?
Do you want to see the answer?
Of course,
It's a very simple answer. Can you tell me what it is?
management,
Management. You're very close to.
project management,
You're very close to.
execution expertise.
Yeah, you're correct. So it's a lack of execution expertise. Really, the sequencing of a planning is very important for the project to get completed on time. So the people who has got an expertise in the execution knows pretty well what to sequence first, what to sequence second, and serial planning or a parallel planning has to happen. What is the dependency for the particular activity to go ahead? What is the risk involved, what is the assumptions involved, in order to when the risk appears in that particular situation, what are the decisions to be taken, really need an expertise execution people to be on the board. Do you think improper sequencing has a very high impact?
Of course. I think it would be resulting in the time loss of about 4 months. What do you say?
Yeah, minimum 4 months is for sure, because small activity which is not sequentially proper will result in minimum 4 months of a time loss.
Yeah. And budget will shoot up to minimum 20 percentage.
I think you have given a very, very minimum.
So you think it would be costing more than that?
Yes, of course.
Okay. And finally, the mental stress.
That is guaranteed. That is a
Yeah.
package of this executing
Yes.
people. Yeah. Okay. So how we can overcome this problem?
We do have a solution.
Amazing.
We have to just follow the steps.
You have a
Sequential
simple
steps.
steps?
Yeah, we do have sequential steps for that.
Okay. Oh, very simple.
Yeah. First, we have to follow the step data collection. Next, reverse mechanism. Third, certification basis. Fourth, process transformation. Fifth, detailed input from machinery vendor. Sixth, allied equipment. Seventh, waste management. Eight, electrical, plumbing, civil work, etc. Ninth, AHU, that is air handling unit. 10th, energy requirement planning. 11th, all vendor board meeting. 12th, pest management. And finally, erection and commissioning.
This looks very simple. I think you have given a simplified versions of the sequential plan. I think this will eliminate a lot of hassles when they are going for the execution of it. I think we are done with the 9 common mistakes. So let us summarize it.
Okay.
So the mistake number 1, failing to plan for expansion. Mistake number 2, men and material traffic. Mistake number 3, improper flooring. Mistake number 4, no proper divisions between wet and dry zones. Mistake number 5, inadequate waste management system. Mistake number 6, lack of clarity with respect to the stages of layout. Mistake number 7, missing the plan for certification. Mistake number 8, facilitation skill by vendor coordination. Mistake number 9, sequencing the execution plan. How many of you realize a small detailing in the plant layout is causing a huge impact or a consequences in terms of money, time, and energy requirement for the execution? Hope you would have realized how it is important to plan for the food plant layout. Don't have a second thought process on this. We at Food Buddies provide a very good robust process, and we apply a lean management system in the production planning, and we do have a hands of experience in executing the food plant layout. Hire us for the hassle free food plant layouts. Thanks for each and everyone for taking your time off and investing your time in listening to this webinar till the end of it. And I'm so glad that you're taking a very good initiative to save the huge amount of investment that you're likely to go in the food plant layout. And here with we both are signing off right now. We will catch up in the next webinar. See you. Thank you very much.